everybody. Welcome to the Janie's Way podcast. And I hope it's welcome back. This week, my guest is the one and only Martin Brossman. Martin's claim to fame is that he is an ace business consultant who has helped hundreds of small businesses achieve their goals in the time since he left IBM. I really think you like his take on life. Ready? Here we go! Hi, welcome to Janie's Way. I'm really excited to introduce Martin Brossman. He is business consultant and educator, and he specializes in networking and marketing, and specifically love the relationship and create friendships that last forever. Yay, I'm excited to see you.
Absolutely. Really excited to join you today, and also really enjoy you coming to the Alignable Networking event. As the volunteer ambassador there, you've added a lot to those monthly meetings.
Thank you so much. Martin, who for listeners that are not familiar with your story, can you give us a little background how it's all started for you?
Well, for me, I was in the corporate world and really in computers. I was a customer engineer specializing in computer support, repair, and handling tough customer problems. And I was just burned out. It just didn't fit for me. And I was trying to find what's the next life for me. And someone handed me an article in, of all things, a neurolinguistic programming course I was assisting with, and said, I think you ought to look into coaching. You seem to be a natural for it. Long story short, I eventually left IBM in 95, and then I built up a PC repair business to fund me until I could let that go and just do coaching and training, and specialized in small businesses and individual professionals, because there's a lot of similarity if you're a salesperson on almost full commission and a small business in concept overlap. So that's where I did. And I've been teaching through the small business centers in North Carolina from 2006 from Murphy to Manio. So my expertise is really in how to market with little or no marketing dollars, but then also the inner game of working with the professionals so that they truly are more effective. And we set up structures so they work with me for a while and then they don't need to work with me anymore.
That's an interesting story. What was the pivotal point for you when you decided this is what you wanted to do?
Well, the big point is I just was I call it my practice marriage was coming to an end, and I was burned out in the computer and technology, and really soul searching on there must be something else that I'm here for. And that's when this sort of opened up. And what would happen is I'd fix people's computer and just talk to them. And then they were so excited, they write me high reviews, but they'd say how my suggestion for them personally was the most valuable thing. And I thought, well, that's not a livelihood, because I didn't know coaching existed then. And I seemed to have a real aptitude for hearing the core components of what needs to be moved with the minimum behavioral changes of my clients to get the highest return on investment. And I really think that's a natural skill I have, because I even built my own certification program for a while. And it's just something where I'm real careful on what are the minimum changes we need to make to get the results the person wants. And I seem to be good at hearing those. It's kind of like someone saying, I need to get better at hammering. And I said, why don't you take this hand that's shaking and let's put a hammer in it and see if it works. And they go, oh my gosh, it works. And so that's part of my skill. And then, of course, a big networker, so I have a huge resource. So I kind of use a combination of strategic planning with intuition and then my connections put together. And right now, I do a lot of training because I'm very, very selective on the people I'll coach. I've got to meet them and decide if I'm willing, it's the right win-win for them. And then, of course, the other exciting thing is the book. that I have 2 books that just came out. This is one of them, and you've got it, Relationship Marketing Cubed, and that's the I'm just excited because when I left IBM, people would say, well, when I was in IBM, they'd say, why don't you get into sales? You're so good with customers. And I'd say, I don't play golf and I don't lie. And that's kind of a smart aleck answer. But once I became independent, I realized I needed to grow up and be more mature about sales and really redefine what sales is, because my inner model of sales is not going to let me survive. I've got to change it. So I truly went through a process of understanding in my own words what is win-win sales. And really, of course, that's the only long-term way to do sales. It's got to be a win for you and them. Well, that worked well, except I just noticed how many times people would say, you're such a great person. I heard your talk. You're a great coach. And I hired a coach, but they didn't hire me sometimes. So sometimes they'd hire me and sometimes not. Then I ran into Pat Howlett and noticed he was doing something, we'll get right there, different. And I studied it, now I see the holes in my system, and applied it, saw results, and said, Pat, I want to implement this. I want to train on it. And Pat's like, I want to be the guy behind the curtain. I don't want to be the guy out front. You love being out front. Run with it. And then I built a training off of it to prove I could do what he does, not just for myself, but teach others, which ultimately led to Jane Malucci, who took the training and applied it, said, I'll help you write the book, because she does all types of stuff, including writing and editing. And she took our training program online and converted it to a quick read book. And I'm just ecstatic, because this is a product where you can give this to your customer. A lot of sales things have little tricks to do, and you really don't probably want to tell your customer. And I call that unethical sales. So that got me very passionate about this. And now it's available in an affordable way for anyone to apply. And then we have training rolling out for groups and associations this year.
Awesome. All the great work. A couple of things that I jot down really quick while you were talking. Can you explain the small changes that makes a huge difference for people? Give an example with something you can do for
I'll give you an example. And I'm changing data a little to protect confidentiality. Okay. So I had a guy come to me that was never getting promoted, wanted to leave the job. And really what I do is I try to understand how they're not getting promoted. I build a model in my head of their paradigm in their mind. It's just a natural process I build. And then I do an unusual thing. I go, I want you to teach me how to not get promoted like you. And that's always seems odd to them, but that's a process I use. And then once I understand it, I go, okay, they said something like, I trust people and they always let me down. And I went, so what do you do? Well, they said, well, I found out what they do is they give people way too much trust too quickly. And then of course people let you down. I said, well, what else do you do? He said, well, I'm a dog trainer. And then I noticed, well, wait a second. As a dog trainer, do you just immediately trust the dog when they come up? He says, of course not. There's temperament, there's breed. I mean, they list all types of stuff. And I went, well, why don't you just start treating people like dogs? Just don't tell them that. So see, that was a skill they had as an innate skill in their neurology. And I transferred it over to people. And well, not only did they start getting along with people, because then they developed discernment and trust. I need to know them a little better. And then the exciting thing is they were going to leave their business because they wanted to get into a more meaningful field. Well, not only did they start getting along better in the company, but they found there was another department doing exactly what they want, and they got promoted into it. And I said, we're done. I mean, you've got what you came for, move on. It's very important that I build in the ability where someone picks me up as a tool for a limited time and then always has that feeling they can put me down. Otherwise, I'm developing some weird codependency for my ethics. But I know it sounds silly, but remember, he had an innate skill in the dogs, and we just moved it over. And these are things that often we can't see in ourselves. It's a subtle thing that when we do it, it can make a profound result. And that's really part of my gift, is hearing those and being efficient with it. And people say that I naturally don't have a judgmental way of listening. I listen with discernment, and I speak up if they're doing something that's counter to their mission or purpose. But they often will say that's different than, they say a therapist might have this non-judgmental thing, but they aren't proactive in, you need to do this now, the house is on fire, and my style is. And I've also been told a lot of coaches are more passive in letting you decide, and I see myself more like I'm in the trenches with you, and we've got to win this battle, and your point. And so I speak up when I see something that doesn't make sense. Executives has told me I've had a coach and I just wanted to slap them because they were so passive. And you tell me right up front if something doesn't make sense, or I might be going down a hallway that may have negative consequences or positive ones.
That's that's a great gift. One of the underlying themes I've talked with a lot of people through networking and specifically through interviewing people. One of the biggest underlying theme is like you need to find that expert, that mentor, that coach. They can see something that you can't see, that someone they can see from outside in. Because once you're in the situation, you kind of in a box, so to speak. You're not able to see those blind spots. And I think what you just said illustrated so interesting that's what you're doing. And so that's kind of like, oh, well, it seems like the underlying theme. So for people who feel stuck is find that expert, do your homework and finding it. But it's so great to having the ability to see that from outside, that people who are in the situation are not able to discern it for themselves.
Yeah, I just thought of another quick one is I've been hired by professionals for sales and everything else, but one was a surgeon who said, I want to be more liked because I'm just not getting liked enough.
Wait, you're working with surgeons?
It's affecting my... Yeah. I've worked with top salespeople, I've worked with doctors, professional groups, executives, of all things. SaaS, I've had a lot of clients. You think it's such a great place, but the problem is it's such a great place. If it doesn't work, it's hard to decide if you're going to move out of it. IBM, executives in Xerox Corporation, all types. So it's small business. It actually transfers. But anyway, the surgeon goes, I'm not getting enough. There's a rating in the office, and I often get lower ratings. And I know I'm excellent in what I do, but so then I have a gift with working with, I call that more of an engineering mind of how to put it and break it down in a way that they're comfortable building the rapport. And it takes some work for them. It's like, okay, you need to slow down at this point, get a pause, double check. I can break it into little steps they can execute, which then the patient has the experience. Because many times with surgeons, the person who's most competent may not have that best
bedside manners,
ability to build rapport or likability. And that's something that's interesting that not many people can coach in, increasing likability. And I actually learned some of those skills in my stand-up comedy training. So, I've built some skills along the way by doing many things too.
So what's the couple of tools, or maybe one tool that helps, like in your case, the surgeon to be more likable?
Well, I'm going to switch to an engineer, okay, because he wasn't able to get a job. And again, I changed things around for the confidentiality.
Of course.
And one of the things is he didn't notice when the person stopped paying attention. And I'll give an example that's a little different than what I did, but it's like I said, explain what's going on and notice when I stop paying attention. And it was funny, in the beginning meeting, I literally was starting to walk out of the room and he's still talking to me. Okay, so so not paying attention, I'm physically moving. And when we got done, I got him to notice the nuances on my face when I stopped paying attention. This was life-changing. He said it helped all his relationships. But that's an example of a nuance to start with. Some people have such a strong internal frame of reference, usually above average intelligence, brilliant people, more leaning towards the technical field, that they need someone comfortable to tell them, okay, now you've lost that person. There it is. You see it? And really, once they anchor that in, they've got it. Now, it doesn't mean they're comfortable with it. It doesn't mean I'm going to take them where they just love to go out and meet people, but it gives them a tool they can execute when they need to for building rapport. Because if you're trying to get a job and you're really brilliant, you're going to talk to a lot of headhunters that aren't so brilliant sometimes. Nothing wrong with the headhunters, but they don't know the field, and you better build rapport with them or you don't get past them. Did that give you an example?
Yeah, that was an interesting point. It seems like communication and specifically building rapport, it comes of everywhere. That's another theme that I hear from all the experts that I interview. Is like your communication and specifically building rapport. It's not just for in professional; it's in personal arena, and it's just you take it everywhere. So it's the skills that you helping people build. It helps them everywhere, not just in their profession, but specifically in a professional field, because those little nonverbal cues can give you so much data. And I say data because you're talking about scientists, the engineers specifically, or surgeons. It gives them the data. So I think it will be interesting to use those words. Say, oh, look at that data. That's giving you the feedback. So I think it's cool. So every little example makes a difference.
And it is mapped on. I've had a number of women professionals that weren't getting promoted, and they thought, well, they just don't want to promote women. And what we found is, in all cases, is it was really the mannerisms and the knowing when to emphasize authority and assertiveness, not aggressiveness, assertiveness in certain roles that then started to work. Like, when do you there's certain people where if you don't, I kind of hit them between the eyes, they won't have any respect for you. How do you do that in language inside a corporation? And I've helped women professionals, brilliant, successful, where they hit a plateau and they think, oh, it's just because I'm a woman. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I'm saying with some of the nuances we've shifted, I've repeatedly proven, okay, it was more the way you were coming to it and mindset than it was actually what you thought. In fact, the thing that has been fascinating in my career is how many times in corporations, I just assumed the men were stopping her, but it was other women in power that did most of the blocking of getting up. So then we would build around that through men and then get them promoted. And that was something I never expected. I just had this stereotype it's of course, men stopping women from promoting. No, it's other women in power. And that was fascinating. But, I have a process I call kind of the mode approach, where if we have someone stuck, I have a process of working around them where they come and open up and they don't think they've been, they finally kind of go, okay, I want to join your team.
So how do you get them to open that up?
Well, I'm going to give an example in small towns with a chamber, because I worked in small towns and others. So we'll switch to small. A chamber director, when they come to town, needs to first understand where's the power in the town. And most people think the power is held by the mayor or someone else. It's almost never them. The power is actually held in the town by the head of the PTA or someone else in the town. So I'll work with the chamber and they go, well, I'm butting heads with the mayor and I need to build rapport. I go, no, you don't need to start there. Who has the power? And then they'll find out someone who owns a coffee shop holds the power in the town. And it takes a little while to explain how you identify that. So I'm excuse me, I can't breaking all that down is different in each situation. But then I go, we need to go over and build rapport with that person who runs the coffee shop. And they do, and they go in and say, hi, I'm the chamber director, new chamber, and I really haven't had a chance to meet you. I love to sit down and find out what you think. A lot of people say you are, you're very something authentic, like you help out with the kids. We don't want to be false. Build that rapport with them, then all of a sudden they notice the mayor starts to accept them because that person had accepted them. And that's kind of my process. And I can do that in corporations. But, excuse me, each one has to be tuned to the specific environment. And I honestly think part of my skills in part were developed because I had some very strong learning challenges. So I had to learn interpersonal skills later in life. And I kind of think that adds to my ability because it's like I see a hologram in my head of their world and I build it and I go, oh, okay, this is a sacred cow to them. We got to move around it. Or we have to work with this, or we can leverage this. And it's hard to describe, but that's kind of how my mind works. I get to know the person, I build a model of them and the dynamics of their environment. And then how do we get success in it?
That's interesting. It's almost like putting a puzzle together. You look at the whole building, and then you kind of putting together the little pieces where they fit the best.
Yeah. I'm very blessed to have that skill.
That's great. You mentioned an interesting thing. I think it's hard for people sometimes to know what assertiveness really is. So especially for females, and I've seen it a lot too. How would you help people build up the assertiveness? Because I don't think any of my guests had touch on that. I feel like it will be important for the listeners.
Well, let me start I grew up in D.C. and my mother was a strong advocate for minority advocates, children's and women's rights and stuff. And really at that very early stage in my growing up, I'm over 60, aggressiveness in women often was the only option to get men's attention. So I really want to say it's evolved over time. So, but aggressiveness is, the way I'll try to give a simple explanation. Again, this has to be dialed into the person. But aggressiveness means I'm going to beat you on the team and it's life and death and I've got to kill you off. Assertiveness is more like I'm going to play rugby with you with all my heart. And then when we're done, we're going to have a beer together.
I love that.
Okay. And so there's a new, and again, this has to be dialed into the person. So I'm not trying to simplify the definition, but it's really learning to move. And what's fascinating is I believe that this is from my, I've led a men's discussion group and a women's, that's another story. But I think in our core, that we have different dynamics like a bell curve, and our core might be feminine, our core might be masculine, and they're all different. It's like a bell curve in my experience, and so there's power in the core of the feminine, but it takes a little work to leverage that, and and then there's power in the core of the masculine, and of course we're a mess in a lot of these areas today where it's just, all blurred. And instead of having the beauty like formal ballroom dancing, we got everyone trying to play the same in some way. And it's a mess, but that's another conversation. It's tragic, actually. So, that's the key is it's sort of like when I'm explaining to men, cherishing and honoring, because I don't do anything really with couples, but I never work with couples because anything that comes close to therapy, I have very tight boundaries as I should. But, they'll bring up something, the relation's not working, and I'll go, well, your partner clearly wants cherishing energy and you're giving honoring energy, trying to get honoring back. You need to distinguish the two. And so those are two other energies in relationships, and that's kind of explained in my next. I have a book, a men's book coming out. Hopefully, the goal is April. So it's work and personal, and that's another distinction that's very important, because if the core is feminine, often what is fed is cherishing. And if the core is masculine, what is fed is honoring. And I do want to, I thought of a story on this I'll include is I had a client come in and she said, "You really helped me with the career. Can I ask you something about my relationship?" I said, "Yeah, but I'm not a therapist. So you're just getting Martin's 2 cents, here." And she said, "Well, he comes over and I just want him to sit down and chat with me, and he just wants to fix something." Well, I got to tell you, I had some fun with it. I said, "Send him to my house first. I got plenty of broken things to fix." So I said to her, "Why don't you actually find some little things he can do to help you in the house, make them simple, and when he does, thank him authentically, and thank him authentically with no but." That's really critical in honoring. See, if I thank you and I go, "That's good, but," I've just killed off the honoring. And that's so important to understand. Once you put a but in it, it's zeroed out. So I said, "Try it and see what happens." And I said, again, this is just some advice. She comes in next, sits in my chair and starts bawling. And I'm going, "Great. I'm not, what am I doing wrong?" She goes, "We had the greatest conversation ever." And I go, "Please explain." Again, I just gave you 2 cents. And she said, "I can't, there's always a little thing in the house. So I asked him, before we do anything, would you fix this light switch over here or something?" Real simple things I knew he could do. He'd do it, did a little more. And I said, "Thank you. That's excellent." And instead of criticizing it, I said, "Would you also do this?" So, like a little tweak to it. So I really remembered, I could hear myself wanting to say, "But." Okay. That's what she said. And then afterwards, we had dinner. I sat down and he was fine chatting.
Wow.
You see, because that honoring was fulfilled, that gave him room to be able to unconsciously kind of, like want to be in what she experienced as a cherishing space. I know we're going, way beyond, but you asked about some distinctions. And again, I see the whole person. You can't take one as other. But I do want to say, when I started, there was no coaching really training. And so I hired both a psychiatrist and a therapist to teach me the boundaries so I didn't cross them. Because there's sometimes you work with someone in coaching and I'll see it's like in a rubber band. You try all these things and they snap back, and everything should work and they snap back. And that's one of the signs there could be a deeper issue that's way outside my scope to help. And I'm very respectful to handle that. I just will go, we're not working, and I'm not willing to accept money as a paid friend or something. And that's where, later I found sometimes they'll come back and said, "I'm so glad you mentioned it. I got therapy," and that started to help. But that's where you'll see you just can't, if someone has trauma in an area that's stopping them, regular coaching will not solve it. They need something deeper than I can offer.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. But let's talk about sales. You said you redefined the sales. You kind of started with that, and we touched on the important issue, because one word, you give an example how one word in the communication, whether it's business or personal, can change the whole outcome. But let's talk about sales, how you redefine it, and what are the key elements or key tools that people can take with them from this conversation and start moving toward not seeing sales as sales and see sales as service.
Well, excellent. Seeing sales as service. The truth, and this is from the book to let you know.
Here, we got the book. I have it too.
It first has to understand of almost viewing yourself as a tool. And your goal is to match it up with the location where it creates the highest return on investment. That's the first piece. So someone's talking to me about coaching, and I said, we're going to sit down and meet, and I want to make sure it's a win-win for both of us, or we won't move forward. Now, I have a big network. I might refer you out to people, but before I do the real one-on-one coaching, if I can, I like to meet them in person, and they're in another city, and they're going to come up. And so first in sales, you got to make sure you know what is the unique offering, as I call it, the only, not elevator pitch, the only. And what is your only? And then who is the person that's the right match for the only? And who is the person that's not the right match for the only? You've got to get both of those. Because if you're there for everyone, you're just a mess. You can't, everything I say to implement, you don't have bandwidth to implement. You can't be there for everyone. So that's the first thing, is making sure you find the right thing. And then the idea is educating instead of selling, and then inviting that you'd like to work with. And it really does work that way. And it's you're a tool. If you have something stopping you from truly authentically and powerfully speaking of your own business, what you're good at, then you need to do the soul work to get that cleaned up. And I've had people like that, especially, unfortunately, sometimes it'll be women where their mother said she thinks well of herself, or don't wave your own flag. And we've got to break that down. And that's something that really takes some real work, because it's our responsibility to communicate the value we provide. It's not theirs to discover it. And if you've got attitude, if you've got this distinction blurred where never wave your own flag, there's a difference between being ugly and rude and owning your power and what you're good at. And we've got to pull these apart and distinguishing them to get effective in sales. And then it's matching up. Who's the right match for you? And who isn't? Now, this is a little more difficult in retail, because anyone who can walk through the door does, but it's all about how you communicate and educate online your business. And it's also, if someone comes in your store and you sell shoes and it's like they're looking for a Walmart pricing, then give them the address to Walmart right away. Be nice about it. But look, our shoes are more designer shoes. We give extra service. You just want a cheap pair of shoes. Walmart's down the street over there. Go to them. And I have a shoe store exactly that's worked with me and done that. It's a wonder. You ought to look them up online. Burnsville Shoes. I hope Main Street Shoes in Burnsville. She's delightful. She now has videos she makes, and it's just so. People love it when I show it to her. And she had not done that before. She just managed to be in a number of my classes. So that's the first thing, is you got to see it is you need to be of service, and you need to be clear. You can't be right for everyone. Otherwise, you really are. It's sort of like, seducing versus courting. Courting means someone's choosing each step. Seducing means we're manipulating. And this is, to me, the old sales. And courting is, in my world, is more of an invitation that moves at a rate with a pace. Did that give an answer?
Yes, and it's almost like, you're not gonna. It's almost like a first date, or figuring out whether you're a good match.
Yep.
And then ask more questions, figuring out where their goals are aligned, where they want to go. But sometimes for people, it's difficult to figure out what's their unique value, unique proposition. Do you feel like they need to continuously trying different things until they figure out, maybe work with different clients until they know for sure who they are, who they're not? How does that evolve for business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly took me till I was 35 to find out this gift. Okay. And I really went into a pretty strong depression thinking I had none.
Oh my goodness.
I do have to say, one way is work with me, because I have a gift in hearing it in people. But another way is try different things and notice it's not always the easiest path, but it's a path where other people will you enjoy it. There's some value in it. Other people will see it as difficult, but you don't see it as difficult in the same way. Sometimes it's really interesting because it's almost like we're built as a human being with this kind of identity, and our purpose is kind of hidden over here, and it's counter to the identity that we started, because really a lot of how we define ourselves was built in response to being a 6 or 9-year-old. I'm not going to be dumb like my brothers, so I'm going to act up or be a comedian. Well, that's kind of the false shell, and that's a survival mechanism, and really the purpose seems to sit behind it, sometimes counter to it. So you really have to actually almost break through the one to move the other forward. And I certainly did. I mean, mine was having learning challenges. I was just too stupid to be alive. Well, that was an easy one to have to break through, because that's a really hard way to go through life. And then I had to break that in. Okay, there's something I can do. I can during the process, I can turn a doorknob competently. That's where I started, to start building up the new one. Okay, well then what am I going to commit my life to disrupt this throne identity and process? And so that's part of the challenge, because for many people, that mission is like, how you catch something out of the side of your eye? It just doesn't. And I think for many of us, and not all, that the survival identity was built where it's not informed by this. So sometimes you have to, work to develop through it. And I know that's a very vague answer, but it is difficult. You have to try a bunch of things and so forth, and I don't think there's one answer for everyone. I don't think like meaning for my beautiful bride and wife is more of being this heart with the family of us, and that's hers doesn't have to. We've really had great talks about this. What do you really want? And she goes, I really love supporting you and my son, and her son, of course, my stepson, and then she really loved when she was doing her esthetician work, where she worked with women with natural skincare to get them to embrace their own natural beauty, and that's like what gave her meaning. I'm sorry, a facial to me was like an uncomfortable experience I wanted to run from, So, that's not, I mean, she needs to notice my eyebrows need cutting or something. It's like, those are not things that give my life meaning. So I don't think there's one recipe that fits everyone. And the thing is to find, I had one client where we were working on something like this, and she said, well, the best way I could describe it is if I brought a bunch of stuff into your living room and we looked at them. So it was funny. We were like sitting there, and she had things that had meaning to her. And then we kind of came up with a purpose to try out. And then it never comes to me completely, which is really important. It comes about 70 to 75%. Otherwise, they won't own it. And then I said, try this out and start living from it and see what occurs. So that's a lot of kind of vague terms, but you asked specifically, a little bit of the process. We have to try to, the kiss of death is staying in your comfort zone. I love, someone said being in a rut is a coffin with the ends kicked out. The worst thing is to stay in your comfort zone. In fact, I have a t-shirt on Amazon I made that says, if your life's boring, it's because you're boring. Life begins outside your comfort zone. You will never find it in your comfort zone. You'll never find it just thinking about it. I want to say never, because I'm sure there's exceptions to this, but it's very few people find it that way. They have to get out and experience something.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of great points, how you have to try different things and how our identity may be tied to that safety zone, because we wired to protect ourselves. Like our identity is like we're comfortable where we're safe, and trying different things may be uncomfortable and scary, and all the fears and limited beliefs are coming out. But at the same time, if you don't get out of that comfort zone, how would you ever know the the one of the things of dying was like, I wish I tried. So I'm living my life. Uh, uh, in the last couple of years, I don't want to say I wish I tried. I've tried. I've done a lot of things, and people might say you're crazy by doing all of those different things. But that makes me who I am. It allows me to see where is my mission, where is my purpose, who am I supposed to serve, and then I also get to experiment what is that population segment of that population that really need me. So it's allowing you for that experimentation. And a lot of people are set in their ways and they don't want to experiment. That's one of the beauties of life, the uncertainties and adventure. And that's the only way we can define or redefine our purpose and what is our mission. If people stop and reflect and kind of say, well, what should I try next? Maybe I'm too comfortable at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to say several things. One, my system doesn't mean throw out your responsibilities. I mean, if you're a family, let's say, and you're the main income and you've got a special needs kid, this doesn't mean you toss this all out. But it might mean you might try learning an instrument a little bit of time before you go to sleep or something. Something where you'd like to do it, but you're afraid you'll fail. And what I did early on in life, it also doesn't mean you do things recklessly you can't recover from. Because you have to be very careful when people go through extreme changes like a divorce or something, that they just make rash decisions swinging to the other area. But one thing I did is I realized if I'm coaching people in this, I need to really have examples of going outside my comfort zone. So I listed 5 things I thought I couldn't do. And they were really at a gut level. I was afraid I didn't want to find out I couldn't do it. It's hard to describe, but when I dug deep enough, and if I can, I may or may not remember them all. One was I couldn't draw, I couldn't sing, I couldn't play an instrument, I didn't know what the heck poetry is, and I don't remember the other. So it was something else. So I took on all of them. And so, I was taking on bass lessons. And I was noticed I was afraid to find out maybe I couldn't. And I realized this is where I need to be. Because if I can't, I've learned something. But I really want to honor that it's a core fear that will stop us often from moving forward. In fact, I was going through my divorce from my practice marriage during it, and the bass instructor said, your progress is so slow. Do you still want to happen? I go, you're way cheaper than a therapist, and just holding this bass and trying to, at least it doesn't sound bad like a violin when I go plung, and it was, and now, I still love instruments. I learn, and I forget and I pick them up, but I can hold a 12-bar blues of one thing a few, minutes. And I have a basic idea of what the primary scale is, and I dip in and out of it. And then I did a drawing of my hand holding a harmonica, and it's still around. I have it framed somewhere, but I was like, someone saw it and went, drawing hands is one of the hardest things, and then went on. I learned about poetry, and I'm in a poetry book, but all of them I had to face that. What if I find out I fail?
Then what?
I mean, singing, I still questionable. I mean, I've had a woman in church say, you don't have to sing out loud. I mean, that's how bad I was. So, dancing was the other one. Oh, yeah. And I got great stories of failing in dancing and humiliation and stuff. So I worked with a dance teacher. I said, I want to learn how to dance and learn basic ballroom dancing. The instructor goes, what's wrong with you? Are you dyslexic? I said, no, I am dyslexic, but she said, you're faking. I said, I am dyslexic, but I'm not faking. If I were faking, I'd be doing a better job. I'm just totally lost. And so, I learned the fundamentals of ballroom dancing. So, but that's an important thing to know. There's stages you go through in this process. And Julia Cameron of The Artist's Way, I'm paraphrasing one of my favorite statements, is, have you ever read the book, The Artist's Way? If not, look up Julia Cameron. She really talks about the struggle and reality of being an artist. And she said, if you want to find people's greatest gifts in life, go walk in a graveyard, because they're rotting in the ground because they never had the courage to express them. And I think that is really true. And I think that's really tragic. And the worst is the people who they're so good from a childhood of winning in one area and succeeding that they're never forced to get outside their comfort zone. And I feel the greatest pity for them, because I actually think they probably don't know what they're missing out on.
That was a good example. I really feel like people should try experiment. Don't do anything wild and crazy all of a sudden, just like you said. But what did you learn from this? How did that make you feel by trying different things? What was your biggest?
Oh my God, my confidence went up. For most of my life, I was cloaked with almost no confidence. I mean, I put on a good show, but inside it was like paper
Oh, really?
thin. I mean, failure is the best way to build real confidence. I mean, I have, yeah, I can't express how much these things, I got to teach at my university, and there was a room full of seniors, and they're so wonderful kids and brilliant. And then I started to realize they have very little confidence. And I realized that they probably were, when I talked to them about it, because they come up and want to talk to me about it, I'd say, what do you think I can do? I said, how much time do you spend outside your comfort zone? And they go, well, my parents really overprotected me and I haven't done much. I go, well, that's why you have no confidence. If someone's just telling you you're great and you haven't had a chance to fail, you really will build no core confidence. And so that's the doorway for it. So the answer is more confidence. I'm clear what my gift is and my interest. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have to work real hard to, take care of things and manage things. Problems don't go away, but it's different when you go, okay, I know what I'm here for and what I'm doing. And and then events like 9/11 occurred that shake us all to the bone, and we have to reevaluate them. I mean, I remember then going, wow, what is this world? And then I restructured, and things will happen in life, and it happens. So
I want to ask you one question about, I was reading your book.
yes.
And one of these things that got my
you.
attention of all the other things is like, which I thought was very different. Like your guys are pointing out that once you explain your process as you try getting the client and you figure out you want to work with them, the process you're good in rapport. You build the report, you explain the process, and then almost right after that, you ask for referral, which people not used to that. Can you explain the psychology behind it and why you do that? People are not used to it. Even I myself, I'm reading that, you want to provide the services and then you hope you can ask for referrals. So how does that work?
Well, I'll just start with, if people are listening to this show and they really get value out of what they've heard today, I really ask that what you do is you share this show with 3 people you think would get value as well. Now, the only difference is I might do that in the beginning. So it's not, I want you to refer me just because. It's conditional on outstanding service or process. So that's the part of the nuance of it. It's not twisting the arm. It's not write down 3 of your friends. We don't put in a contract. It's really about me holding myself accountable with the client that I'm going to do such a great job if it's the right match, that I feel comfortable telling them, if they're satisfied, that they'll do this. So that's the key to understand, is that what I learned from Pat is I would wait to the end and bring up, if you like me, let people know, and so forth. And then what would happen is some people would become clients, but then some people would come back and said, I heard you speak. You're a great speaker. What a great coach. I've seen you in action, and I hired someone else. And I go, what? I had all the indication I hired someone else. Well, the problem is at the end, their mind is now going on to the next aspect of the life. So if you don't properly build it into the process of working with someone, then it's too late at the end. I'll give an example, and I won't use names, but there's a company that hired us, and I said they have a lot of regulations and stuff like that, and I said, if you're comfortable, would you let 3 people know? And they said, we can't. It's not our policy. And I talked to my associate, and I said, we should not take on this client. Nothing's going to come from it. We should stop right now. And he said, well, I really want to do it, and because we're upgrading our training. I went, that's cool, we'll do it, but it's not. And he goes, oh no, I'm optimistic. And of course, what happened is nothing, just as I knew. And we should have said no, or had charged twice as much, at least, minimum. So if there's another request that comes in, my rate just doubled, for that. And because then I'm not building out more people. And the truth is, if someone's not comfortable and you're building this, if you really understand the book, and that's why we also had the training and working with people, and I do it with coaching, you're pre-screening your clients to make sure there's someone that would work with that. And if there's somebody that they love you so much and they've gotten so much value from you, they won't tell anyone. Now, this doesn't mean you're a therapist treating crack addicts. Okay, there are a few conditions where, you're not, if someone had crack and they're getting over it, they're going to a psychiatrist, they're not going to go, hey man, I had crack and now you need to go to this guy. So there are a few exceptions that doesn't quite fit in. Okay, but if you actually really get the value and you provide the value of the right person and they're not excited already to do that, you just need to provide the structure and path that's important to you. And I'll tell a story that's related to this. And it kind of disrupts this know, like, and trust. I always went, there's something wrong. We chant that all the time. There's something missing from this, which is addressed in this book too. And it's like know, like, and trust. So a great example is I was out in Western North Carolina and we're having, I love when I get to do training, I can stay over. And then some of the students if I work in a town and they bring me in enough, I can really make a tipping point change in the whole community. And so we met for breakfast. They had a bed and barn place. They didn't put me in the barn. I got to stay in a bed. They actually have horses there if I stay there. Then we met for breakfast. Some of the students joined us and we're sitting there. And one of the people said, look over there. That's Judy. She's running for office. I said, oh. And I said, well, do you like Judy? Yeah. Do you know her? Yeah. I've known her since high school. Do you trust her? Yeah, I trust her. Are you voting for her? No. Okay, we got know, like, and trust. What's missing? Would you mind telling me why? She said she didn't ask.
Wow.
You see, the care enough to ask, the invitation. Is it really a match? And then I've had people do this work and they go, well, I bailed out and I didn't ask for 3. And I said, let's slow this down. Did you truly qualify them? Are you right match? Are they paying you? And are you certain that you're the best thing for them? And they thought a minute and said, no, I didn't. I needed the sale that day. You see? So I'm actually calling people to be better than they naturally would with this. It's not just an ethical sales. It's to step up to the plate and play a higher game. And so this has so many layers. That's why it's relationship marketing queued, because there's the potential for a logarithmic growth on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, because it's almost like to me, what you just said, if you're not comfortable to ask that means you maybe not the right person and they're not be the right person for them. If you're not comfortable. And I didn't even say it that way until you explained it, but it makes a lot of sense. It's more of I don't want to say psychological game, but it's more of a energetic exchange. Like if you don't feel comfortable, you can't provide them with the solution, then you won't be comfortable to ask. It's just a very different way of looking from what I've heard and seen. That's why I wanted you to explain it, but it makes a lot of sense now. You pointed out why. See, for me, I was always analytical. I have the analytical mind. I wanted to know why. So
Yep.
once I know why, it makes sense, and then and then also you're looking from a different perspective. I've written some things that where people need to define their expertise. That would mean they need to figure out what they specialize in.
Yes, and here's the thing. It doesn't mean they can't have multiple things, but you have to decide what is the tip of the spear for this particular context. So, it might be like I'm working with the doctor and they have many services they offer. What is, for the online content, what is the thing someone will be looking for where you're the best answer? Then it might be in person, you have a different approach, or in networking groups, you have a different approach. So you have to get a tip, because people don't buy confusion well. It's like, hi, I'm a business coach, and I also do massage therapy, and I also I'm a distributor of this network marketing product right here, and and so you really have to figure out in this context, what is the right start? What's the entry point? Where do I need to start with? And that's a very important piece.
I think what you're saying is if there's a couple of different things you do, but they have a relationship, like they closely related to each other, like marketing and business, or business and mindset, things that you need to build out your program, so to build your clients, then it's different than what you described.
Yeah, but it also is, which is the specific need I'm going to lead with, which is, what do I believe in this context is the need they will perceive. That's what I need to lead with. So, let's say I do amazing things. Let's say I'm a photographer that can do photography, but I can create art and bring it in your home. And I know about feng shui and your environment and everything else. But what people need right now is portrait photos in my area. Okay, well, then let's lead with that. Build rapport and then go out. I actually give an example of someone early on that was really trying to build up a feng shui consulting business. Okay, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of how you create your environment. And I said, and they weren't making any traction. I said, what do people need that you're just really good at? She goes, I can organize a garage like no tomorrow. Okay, let's change the website and say garage organizer. Okay, like that's it. And then you have another page where other things I offer. And what happened is, then they start getting traction and sales on it. They built rapport and say, well, I do something else. You might not have heard of it. It's feng shui. I'll give you an article on it. And then the person trusted them and brought them into the home to do other things. So I really am kind of specific. Then, of course, when you have things that contrast too much, you have to do what I call build a plausible bridge. And that's a little hard to explain, but I build in language the plausible bridge between each one, so that they represent them not as disconnected things.
Very good. So the logical bridge from one thing to another, that they're connected.
Yeah. Well, it's actually the best word I know is plausible. So, example in science fiction movies, why do we accept Spider-Man? Because he doesn't break all the laws of physics. He keeps, so that goes, well, gravity's still there and wind is still there. So we're going to let him fly through the air on the string. So even people who do science fiction movies are careful on connecting what is plausible off of what's the laws of physics are. So it's a little bit different. Yeah. Excellent.
Well, I think one of the other biggest point that you guys were making in the book, that you need to ask enough questions to figure out what's the real problem.
Yeah. So she's gone off the air. I don't know if we're broadcasting live, but this has been fantastic. And see if it comes back.
There you go.
Well, There, there we go. Great. Yeah, you're right.
We're having
Yeah,
awesome
perfect.
conversation. I'm loving it. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and I don't know how much time you have. We probably want to wrap it up sooner than later.
Yeah, we probably wrap up. We've had a great time. Yeah.
We uncover a lot of things that I haven't uncovered from. Okay, well, here we go. So, this book, guys, it's a small book, but it have so many different things that you just have to kind of read it and reread it. I'm going to read one quote from the book.
Okay.
Do what you do so well that people can't resist telling others about you. Walt Disney. What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Of all the people?
Well, what it means is you really need to understand, and this is a dynamic process of who is the customer that has an outstanding experience working with someone like me or using my product. That's the beginning piece. You've got to, and it's okay if you don't know. It's okay if you trial and error, but you're really looking, who do I serve well and who do I not serve well? And keep dialing that in. And then when you do this well, your mind will start anticipating the next thing your customer needs before they even know it. But this only happens if you dial this in. If you're out there with a range of people you market to, this will not happen.
That's great, Martin. When you that question probably referring to your earlier career. You ever feel like you didn't know what you were doing? How did you overcome it? What'd you do?
Well, I mean, the part of it is I just hit a wall of depression that was really serious, and went through the end of the marriage, I went, I don't know how I'm going to go on, and of course my care of my parents and that I had a responsibility to one day be there for them was probably the only thing keeping me going. And so then I went, okay, all right, let's just choose something. Let's pick something. Let's just pick something and live with it for a while and see how it works. Sometimes you just need to choose and live from it, not make radical changes and live from it. And the thing that ultimately came is what would give my life meaning. I don't always tell people, but I thought, well, I want to be a catalyst in people's lives so that when they're on their deathbed, they reflect over their life and they're moved to tears by the life they lived. I went, well, that's a pretty good reason to get up in the morning. I mean, because I'm very in tune with suffering on the world, and it seems like there's a lot. It's, what did Buddha say? This is the world of suffering. I feel like if aliens come, it's like humans know how to take a great life and suffer over it, or a poor life, or be really poor and have an amazing life. And so that is kind of a background lantern for me, and shield and sword, as I describe it, for a purpose. Now, it doesn't mean I don't forget it from time to time, but it's really thinking about that's the goal. And could I be a piece, like a catalyst? I like the word catalyst because a catalyst is something that moves something forward in chemistry. And so I like that analogy. You add the catalyst, but it doesn't mean you always have to keep adding the catalyst. And that's very important to me, that I set things up and people and structures so that they're like, we're done with this. Now I want you to coach me in this other area. Okay. I had someone move from $2 million in sales to $4 million in sales. And we sat down, went, I think you're good. You'll run on your own. Call me if you need something. No. And now I think they're over 8 million in sales. So it's very important that it's not permanent.
They're always having a new goal, right? Speaking of always having something new and challenging to keep you going, what's keeping you going now every day? What's waking you up?
Well, the new books, the excitement of people one person just bought 20 books and they're consulting, and they work, the people have read it. The biggest thing with this book is it does require some core behavioral changes. Reading and thinking about it it's not useful. Don't buy it if you're only going to read and think and not do something. Read and think and act in small ways and make notes. And, I set up, there's a community for people to ask questions right in the back, free to join so they can go in. Now we also offer customized training and one-on-one, but I wanted it to be like 100 pages in a quick read. I didn't want to cover everything under the sun. I wanted the essence. And the key is you got to get on the court and experiment. You might experiment with a friend and then make some mistakes. And in fact, we have an area we encourage writing notes in the back of the book. This is a basic change that has to occur that many of us are not familiar with. And thinking it through is a waste of time. You have to find a safe way to experiment to see, because what will happen is your own paradigm will keep you from seeing what will make the next transformation. We're locked in. Well, it's not what I've done and it doesn't make sense. Well, then that's probably a great place to start. Just don't do something stupid and reckless,
Implementation
that's
implementation is a lot of people lacking on. The learning things is one thing, but you have to kind of, it doesn't have to be completely changing your life in one day. That's not what you're saying. No. You're saying you have to take some steps to start changing, implement new behaviors, trying new things and experiment. Like it goes back to experimentation and trying new things. But having the book is great and taking notes, but I would say start a plan of what you want to implement first and try different things for, what'd you say, a month, a week? What they say, take 66 days?
Yeah, no, I would say give it 90 days. 90 days. 90 days. Try it in small ways, use it, and ask questions. I mean, I created a way you can ask. It's really kind of a peer-to-peer help, but there's a way to ask questions. Not other books offer that. And so that's at least to get on the court, make some mistakes, learn from them. And those that actually do it have just profound results. It's just in the process I realized often adults would rather have a root canal without painkiller than do one behavior that would transform their whole life. That's my experience, so I know what I'm asking. I always thought it'd be good to have a bumper sticker that said, be anything but yourself, it's an upgrade. The reason is often our image of ourselves of good people, not narcissists, people, that have real mental problems, so good people, their image of themselves is so small that they need to break out of it and try something new. They're living much smaller than they need to. And it doesn't mean big like the whole world needs. It can be very small things you do. People can find meaning in the smallest activities. So this doesn't mean you have to have a purpose to change the world or anything like that. My wife has a purpose really to be the wonderful gift she is with her and her son, and she inspires me to be a better man every day. And she's the greatest human being I've ever met. And it's like we all have to find what our little thing like that is. But I do believe it starts with getting outside your comfort zone. That's a core familiarity.
Yeah, it seems like we circle back to kind of almost when we started, experimenting, getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah, good way to end.
Yeah, what's your biggest takeaways from our conversation, and anything I didn't ask you that you would like to add?
Well, first of all, you're a fantastic listener and interviewer, because I think this is one of the best interviews I ever did, and I'm going to be asking for a copy to also publish on my own show and give you credit, because it's the quality of the listening that brings out the quality in the person. And I feel this is one of my better interviews, and I give you credit for it, because it's really the environment you create. It's like listening we influence people from listening. I'll tell people a quick story. Ever go into a room with someone extremely judgmental? You may not know them, but they're extremely judgmental, and you notice how it affects your speaking. Well, you have a great listening as a interviewer in my experience. So that's the takeaway. I'm excited to, I'm going to ask you guys for a copy and co-publish it on mine and give credit back, as well. So I hope you keep doing this. And I ask that people got value out of this. Share your show with at least 3 people, because I think this is something you have a real passion for. And I want to thank your husband. You've teamed up with your husband as he's working. We're trying a new thing today. So, in technology,
Yeah.
and I'm the right one to do it. You got picked the person. But you can tell he takes great pride in doing the best production you can do, and so I want to thank him as well.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for your great feedback. It was interesting to me. So here's a little quick story about me and how it's all started. Just to give you feedback on what you just said. So I see, growing up in Ukraine, listening wasn't my key things. I continue. I have the emotion, like I always want to interject, right? But that's not something that you have to kind of scale back as an interviewer. And it was very difficult for me initially, but now I'm able to do that. It's just getting out of my comfort zone, trying something new. So it's a great pleasure to hear that, and I really appreciate your feedback. So it's amazing. It goes back to trying new different things. You never know what you can discover, and being patient with yourself. Number one, I think, is being patient with yourself.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, terrific. Well, keep going.
Thank you. And you guys don't forget the book, and we'll have all the Martin's, all of your links in the website and how they can reach you. All will be in the show notes. And I greatly appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was great. Great. Thanks so much. This was wonderful. Look forward to enjoying it and sharing it with many people. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, is Martin not awesome? The big takeaways I got from him today are that sales should be viewed with a service-oriented approach, focusing on providing value to customers. Also, for business growth, it's necessary to step out of your comfort zone, and embracing continuous improvement is key to achieving success and making a positive impact. Don't miss out on future transformative conversations. Hit subscribe on Jenny's Way, and let's continue this journey of inspiration together. Until next time, keep crafting your stories and reaching new heights. See you!